Well, thank you very much for joining for the news review, which will be serving you shortly. The Executive Secretary of the Ashanti Business Owners Association joins us for a conversation there. But the news review is brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, and they are offering you for free, gratis, prostate screening and female fertility screening. They're just doing this for you for free. So where can you go by their branches to get this facility? Here in Accra, it's in Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. Then again in Kumasi, Kronoma here behind the Angel Educational Complex. They are in Anaji Estate in Takrade, in Tema. They can be located in Community 22, Techiman Hanswa and Esiama in Zima. I'm sure you'd like to call to make a booking, and these are the numbers to call. 0244 867 068. That is 0244 867 068. Alternatively, you could call 0274 234 321. 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Let's now kickstart the news review. We'll be getting into the papers together with Charles Appiah. As I already mentioned, he's Executive Secretary at the Ashanti Business Owners Association. Mr. Appiah, a very good morning to you.
A good morning to you.
It's a pleasure having you on board. I remember the last time we had a conversation, you were full of complaints about the economic situation, the currency exchange, the forex, that is, fuel prices, people not being able to purchase products and all of that. Has anything changed for you? It's been a number of months, if I'm not mistaken, since the last time we spoke. What would you say is the state of business now? And I know the KTR market also went up in flames, and that would also affect business generally. But what is the state of business for you and for your members? Hello, Charles.
All right, thank you and good morning. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, good. You and to your cherished viewers and to all businesses across the lanes of Ghana. Yes, the last time we had a conversation, there were issues that we elaborated. Nothing has changed that much, but rather we find ourselves getting deeper into the toughest moments of doing businesses. And in that, things have increased. When you look at, our business have two sides, the supply side and the demand side.
Right.
We as business have the supply side where we supply to the market. The demand is the consumer having the ability to buy its other side of the business. But over the period, what we have realized is that economic occurrences have depleted that power of the consumer to purchase. So we as business might have the goods, but the consumer doesn't have that disposable income to buy. So sales have been affected. And if that alone exists, probably we'll find a way of surviving.
But at least bringing the products in, it's costing you less to bring the products in, right? In terms of the forex exchange.
No, it doesn't. I have told a lot of people that forex is not the only determinant in our price buildup.
Okay.
There are a lot of factors that we look at in determining the price of a product. Yes, you have seen a little stability within the forex range, but that alone is not enough. You remember government have taken off the benchmark value that was a safe haven for businesses, which of course affect pricing. Policy rates also have gone up by 20%. That have increased interest rates to over 42%. That also affect pricing. So you also look at other obligations that you also have to meet in terms of rent, in terms of paying for your trading licenses for the metropolis, transport, and a lot of other things have affected the general business outlook. And we're looking at how best can government probably listen to the business community and introduce policies or interventions that will avert the challenges that we are going through. Because the basic principle of every economic growth is determined by the health of the businesses. If our businesses are suffering, if we are collapsing businesses, it's a picture of our economy. And we have been telling them.
Well, Charles Apia's connection is slight.
Listen to the business committee. We want to see our country doing well. There are challenges within the business sector.
Go ahead, Charles.
Please, can you hear me?
Charles, you can go ahead. All right, we'll try to remedy those challenges and get on with Charles Apia, who is sharing some of his concerns with us this morning. So he's saying that basically it's not just the Forex or the currency exchange that affects their business, but there are other dynamics to it. We do know, but I just wanted to find out from him what impacts that Forex decline in terms of the depreciation of the cedi had brought to bear on them. But we'll try to get him back, and then I'll also ask him about the Ketia market and what happened, whether in fact we can get any thoughts on what exactly he feels the impact of that would be. But let's get into the papers now as we await his rejoining us. The Daily Graphic this morning: refund unearned salaries, allowances, or face prosecution. And Fair Wages and Salaries Commission warns banks and employees. That story is on page 16. And Kafo Psychiatric Hospital owes suppliers 2 million Ghana cedis. That story is on page 16 as well. Let's reform political party financing. Former President Mahama says so. He's been talking about a number of issues, myriad ones, and that's the latest that he's been speaking of. Ministry of Health takes delivery of 500,000 doses of measles rubella vaccine. On the back page, Ghana coach sure of winning start against Angola. But all I'll say is let's not get complacent. So let's get to the big stories. And Charles Apia is back with us. Hello, Charles.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me? Sorry for that.
No, it's not your fault. Anyway, so let's quickly do this. I'd already started with the Daily Graphic. You were talking about the different dynamics, so let's finish with those. You're talking about the currency exchange, fuel prices, renting shops. Which other ones would you speak of? And then I'd like to find out from you finally, what do you think the impact of the Ketia market going up in flames will have? How negative would it be on businesses in Kumasi? Very briefly on that.
Very well. So just a touch on the dynamics now. Gas, which everybody depends on for domestic consumption, has also rose from 29.9% to 57.4%. All these have a tone on disposables of consumers.
Right.
So at a given time, everybody is so much conscious about expenditure. And we're thinking government could be much more interested to see what can I do for my people. But I hear there's a bill in Parliament that they want to enhance some of these income tax and excise. Why? What crime have we committed? I mean, the timing is wrong.
So do you feel victimized? Do you feel victimized by the system?
I think that should be the simple word to use. But we are more than victimized than the reality of the issue. There's a total discharge between government and businesses. And I've always talked about what a model we call the Le Fair curve, where government must avert its mind to the relationship between tax increment and revenue mobilization. Almost all the time, a tax increment does not mean you get in the kind of revenue. Sometimes you must seem to be getting revenue, but at the detriment of the economy, at the detriment of collapsing businesses. When businesses collapse, where will government get that revenue to pay off the loans they are looking for?
That's a good point.
So I have said that the economy will not collapse. The economy will not collapse when we don't get IMF approval. But the economy will collapse when businesses collapse.
And
So
that's
government
a
should be
that's a
much
crucial
more
point. That's a crucial point you make, because if there's no one to tax,
Exactly.
you will not get revenue. But I wanted to find out, what did you say? Did you say
Government has
there
money to
was a
pay.
distance between a total distance or disconnect or dysfunction between government and the business community? I didn't get the word you used.
There's a total disconnection. There's a total disconnection of
Disconnect, right?
relationship. The government have lost touch. Total disconnection between government and businesses. But we are your backbone. We are your lifeline.
Right.
Without us, you can't do anything.
What do you think will be
Right. So let's
the
get to the
impact?
effect of KJTL.
Yes, that's what I wanted you to go to.
Okay. I think economic hardship, where people depend on daily sales to survive. When businesses depend on daily sales to survive, to meet their bank loans and other obligations, a shutdown of any business because of the inept activities of management will cost us a lot. I am told for a period the Ghana Fire Service have been prompting the management of KJTR that gets your facility well insured. But that have not been done. I met the leadership of KJTR and they told me that every month they pay for the insurance. And it came out that since 2021, the facility have not been insured. So you just imagine at this critical time when your stocks are being burnt and there's no insurance to cover that. When you have to close down shop because someone did not do what is right for him to do and he's being paid for. And that has created a lot of congestion now because KJT activities have slowed down. It's up its implication on the CBD area in Edum. There's congestion now. So what we are talking about is leadership must always be up and doing. And this time, it's not be the usual talk where we talk and nothing happens. People must be held to account. What happened that such facility was not so much insured? What happened that they did not test the integrity of that structure to respond to calamities like this? All these things has not been done because Ghana has always been business as usual. We don't take our leaders to account. And I've told the leadership of the Traders Association in KJTR that they should devoid their activity from politics. It is because of politics that they cannot hold their leadership to account. And that is what is killing businesses even in Ashanti region. We have gotten ourselves so much engulfed into partisan politics, either MPP, NDC. So we don't want to do what is right. So I have told them that we will follow it to the latter to ensure that the right thing is done. There's indemnity for lost items. There's restitution for them. And if money they have paid and the management have not paid to insurance company, they must account for refund.
Okay, so you would want a refund for them. Let's make tracks. Let's get into the papers now.
For the purpose which they paid for.
Okay. Charles, let's get into the newspapers now. So I started talking about this major story, let's reform political party financing. That's according to former President Mahama. Let me bring you some details on that and get your reaction. Now, former President John Dramani Mahama has called for reforms in the financing of political parties to deepen the country's democracy. He said the reforms would also ensure that certain elements did not take undue advantage of the country's governance system. The former president said ethical political financing had been one area in the country's democratic journey that had continued to elude reform, adding that the dependency on a few individuals who financed political campaigns in return for favors was a recipe for corruption. One of the reforms he recommended was public financing of political activities, which must be accompanied by a public funding of political parties bill, while the law that enjoined only citizens of the country to contribute financially to political activities should be enforced, as well as compelling political parties to declare their incomes and their sources. I'll tell you for a fact that these laws governing political party campaigning are not adhered to. The political parties, who knows where they get their money from? We've heard from time to time, there may be influences from here and there. The danger is that you could have drug barons, you could have terrorists, so to speak. You could have very elements that are unsavory, backing certain political forces. And once they come to power, it means those elements are going to have a field day. In other jurisdictions, there are clear systems, public financing. And even if you take a gift beyond a certain sum of money or to a certain tune, you might find yourself in hot waters. Do you think this is the way to go? But even if you think it is, the former president had the opportunity. He was in power at a point. We didn't see some of these. Do you think it is lessons learned that is making him say some of these things? What do you make of these utterances of the former president?
All right. All right, thank you. I think the call for public financing of political party is in the right step, and we should encourage that. And in that, apart from curbing corruption and introducing nepotism within the body politics of our country, it will also break that geopolitics that we have, the NDC NPP issue. And when we encourage public funding, you will see a lot of quality party cropping up, which will enhance our democracy. And two, you mentioned we stand at the loss of getting terrorists financing our political activities. And that will also have implication on our securities. And that will also influence the kind of policies our government will enact for us. But if states are sponsoring political parties and there's right accountability and demand for expenditure made with those funding, it's definitely going to help our country. For the former president to come up with this, it's just like the wine, it gets only better with time. I think he has always been on the learning curve. He's an experienced politician. He has been a leader of this country before. So he understands the challenges within our body politics. And therefore, a call for such public funding for our political parties should be appreciated without, putting in any partisan colors to it. It is about leadership. And this country needs it at this time so we can grow our democracy very well.
Interesting thoughts. Let's get into some other stories as well. Let's turn to page 16 now. Let me just quickly get there. Here we are. We do know that, just staying with the NDC, the presidential primary, Kojo Bonsu, has filed his nomination. But let's now talk about refunding unearned salaries, allowances, or facing prosecution. That is the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission speaking to banks and employees. And the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission has warned of legal action against banks and employees detected to be receiving fraudulent salaries or allowances, a practice that is contributing to the drain on the national coffers. The Chief Executive Officer of the FWSC, Benjamin Arthur, gave the warning ahead of a nationwide payroll monitoring exercise. In an interview with the Daily Graphic, he urged persons who might have received money, such as salaries or allowances, illegally or unduly, to refund it of their own volition before it was detected, else they would face the full rigors of the law. This was mentioned yesterday, and that institution served notice that it would embark on a nationwide payroll monitoring exercise in collaboration with its relevant stakeholders from Saturday, April the 1st this year. For me, it's always very surprising how we have so many slippages in our system. It's systemic, where we have so many ghost names, not just on our electoral roll, but we also have a lot of them on our staff roll, government, related public sector workers. You would have so many ghost names. And now you see that there's also a trend where sometimes people get emoluments or what's the term? Basically salaries or sums of money that they do not even deserve. What do you make of this latest charge? Are you inspired by it to believe that something real is going to happen on the back of this? I think we just lost Charles. We'll try to connect with him. I think this morning the connection is not the most stable, but we'll try to work it out and get Charles Appiah back on the line. For those of you who don't know him, who just joined the conversation, he's the Executive Secretary of the Ashanti Business Owners Association. But let's also talk about the Ankerful Psychiatric Hospital, which owes suppliers 2 million Ghana cedis. and it is suffocating from debt, and unless it gets help, it could soon be turning away the hundreds of patients who need attention. Apart from that, the hospital, one of the 3 leading psychiatric facilities in the country, which serves the central, western, north regions, and even parts of Côte d'Ivoire, is also facing serious logistical constraints that are hampering effective health care delivery. In addition to providing specialist services in mental health delivery, it also provides general medical care for the public. At the moment, the hospital owes its suppliers 2 million Ghana cedis, that is 1,003,564 cedis owed to suppliers, and a judgment debt of 1,118,000 plus cedis awarded in favor of a supplier who sought legal resolution. Some of the indebtedness to suppliers date back to between 2015 and August 2018. In an interview with the Daily Graphic, the head of administration of the hospital, Thomas Kusanu, said the hospital was facing dire financial challenges because it had been operating on its internally generated funds, as government subvention had not been forthcoming. The last time it received subvention was June last year, and the IGFs are raised from hospital charges and affiliate fees from nursing schools for internships. And that is the sad, sad situation of the Ankafo Psychiatric Hospital. I wouldn't be surprised, especially as the ECG is embarking on this revenue collection drive, or to recoup sums of money owed it. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that this psychiatric hospital also owes the electricity company, which would further worsen its woes. But just to wrap with the Daily Graphic so we can make some tracks, let's go on the international front. And this has caught the attention of many. Uganda Anti-Homosexuality Law, life imprisonment for gays. And people who identify as gay in Uganda risk life in prison after Parliament passed a new bill to crack down on homosexual activities. It also includes the death penalty in certain cases. A rights activist told the BBC the debate around the bill had led to fear of more attacks on gay people. Quote, there is a lot of blackmail. People are receiving calls that, quote, if you don't give me money, I'll report that you are gay, they said. The bill is one of the toughest pieces of anti-gay legislation in Africa. Homosexual acts are already illegal in Uganda, but this bill introduces many new criminal offenses. It's interesting, and I'm only also bringing this up depending on where we stand on that divide. We also have our own bill that has not seen the light of day. What would that look like? What shape would it take if it is given clearance? There's also Zimbabwe to offer public servants 100% pay rise, and that has been awarded civil servants 100% salary increment as part of efforts to improve their welfare, the government-owned daily The Herald has reported. However, the increase just keeps pace with Zimbabwe's high inflation, which stands at 92.3%. But at least something being done there. What's going to be the pay rise situation for us next time the tripartite committee sits? Ethiopia rejects U.S. accusations of war crimes. All of those stories on page 5 of the Daily Graphic news paper. Let's quickly get into some other stories so we can move from there. The Ghanaian Times newspaper, NIA begins printing 541,529 Ghana card backlog. We brought you that story yesterday. Attorney General holds talks with UK Deputy Prime Minister, and he's been in the UK. He was speaking to the Attorney General there. Regulate social media and online, NMC advocates. Farmers' pension scheme takes off. COCOBOD targets 800,000 cocoa farmers. First phase registration starts in the Ashanti region. Let's get into some of those stories now and get the details from there. I think I'll start with the ones on page 13. So let's quickly go to those. Now, the Farmers' Pension Scheme has taken off, and COCOBOD has targeted 800,000 cocoa farmers. The Ghana Cocoa Board has started the full implementation of the Cocoa Farmers Pension Scheme, and this followed a successful piloting of the CFPS in New Edubiase in the Ashanti region. The first phase of the registration exercise has started in the Ashanti region in Bekwai, Obuasi, New Edubiase, Antwakrom, Joso, Tepa, and Yinehini, with about 90% of the farmers registered. About 800,000 cocoa farmers are targeted to be enrolled onto the scheme. But there's also this bit about regulating social media and online. What are the details of that story? Let me bring them to you now. And the Executive Secretary of the National Media Commission, Mr. George Sapong, is advocating more regulation of the media space, especially online and social media. This, he emphasized, was to help curb the issue of fake news, misinformation, and disinformation in the country. Mr. Sapong stated these at a forum organized by the Media Foundation for West Africa in collaboration with the National Peace Council and the NMC in Accra yesterday. With funding support from the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office of the UK, the forum brought together about 100 participants, including civil society organizations, human rights activists, and members of the diplomatic corps, United Nations agencies, and the media. It was on the theme, misinformation, peace, and democratic consolidation in Ghana. On page 12, just to take a swipe at that, Ghana takes delivery of 500,000 more measles vaccines. And the Ministry of Health yesterday took delivery of 500,000 additional doses of measles, rubella vaccines to beef up stocks nationwide. The sector minister, Kwekwaji Menu, said the vaccines, which came in through, quote, traditional supply channels, would last the country a minimum of 6 weeks as government worked around the clock to secure more vaccines. Well, let's just take a look at this other story on page 14, as I hinted earlier. The Attorney General, Godfrey Abuadame, has met the Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and Lord Chancellor, Mr. Dominic Raab, on Tuesday, March the 21st, hosting our Attorney General and Minister of Justice. Now, the two discussed matters of mutual interest concerning the administration of justice in the two countries. Mr. Raab spoke highly of Ghana for her support to the International Criminal Court. Of course, we know of the latest issues concerning Russian leader Vladimir Putin, and in which case the dynamics impose that any member country which is signatory to this accord, if Russian President Vladimir Putin were to find himself in any of these countries, it would behove that country to apprehend him and process him for delivery to the International Criminal Court. Interesting times ahead as we look at all of these global dynamics. There's also on that page, decriminalizing suicide. Criminal Offences Amendment Bill read second time. And the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill 2021, which seeks to decriminalize suicide, has been read for the second time. If passed, it is believed the act would bring legislative measures to reform Ghana's criminal jurisprudence. Moving the motion for the second reading at plenary of Parliament in Accra yesterday, ranking member of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee and MP of Akachi South, Bernard Ahiafo, said the time had come for persons who attempted suicide to be provided with medical assistance rather than criminal prosecution. On the back page, 2023 Cup of Nations qualifier, stars ready to swallow Angola's Palancas Negras. And the Group E standings so far, we've played 2 matches and we have 4 points, meaning we had 1 win and 1 draw. Angola is next to us also with 4 points, and the Central African Republic has a point and Madagascar also has a point. Would we be able to whitewash or get past the Angolans? That is the big question, and especially as we have at post for the first time, Chris Houghton. In other stories, as we get ready to wind down on the review, the Daily Guide, Alan pays for MPP delegates album. Alan Tremartin pictured there with Justin Frimpong-Kodia, the new scribe of the party, among some other stalwarts of the party. Gonja's Hail Baumia, Reject Mahama. See story on, that story is actually on page 3. And the science to humanities ratio improves. And that's according to the Education Minister, Dr. Yao Osei Edu-Chum. So let's get into some of those stories. I'll take just one of them. Vice President Dr. Baumia was given a rousing welcome by Gonjas, who thronged to the outdooring of Yagbongura Bi Kunutu Jawuswale at the Jakba Palace in Damongo. This was after the enskinment of Tuleura Amone Bafe Borenyi as the 34th Yagbongura of Gonja traditional area in the Savannah region. The arrival of Dr. Baumia at the traditional grounds sent the crowd into a frenzy as both women and men cheered him on. It's interesting, I had to take this story because recently when he went to the Ashanti region, the charge by the Allen team was that these members of parliament who had gone there had been bussed. Some of them had even received sums of money, and that he had forgotten that at the Akwesidai, the Otumfuo would not be able to make any pronouncements or give him any credibility. It's interesting how all of this political play is panning out, both in the NDC and the NPP. The shots, the pot shots that are thrown here and there. But in the end, in the NDC, soon we'll find out whether who is going to actually lead the party. And in the NPP as well, we're going to find out, the other day I heard, I've just forgotten his name, the spokesperson for the Allen team, make mention of the fact that the man-eating tiger, referring to the current president, was the one who had beaten Allen, and Allen had always come in second place. And so now it only stands to reason that the person who was in second place should take the top spot. But what happens? The two parties and their delegates will decide in the end. The STEM campaign has increased the ratio of science to humanities from 34 to 66 in 2017 and 2018 to 39 to 61 last year. That's according to the Education Minister, Dr. Yawase Duchu. And of course, that is an improvement per the data he gives us. Also, if you're an Arsenal fan, you would remember this gentleman, Mesut Özil, German international. He has announced his retirement from professional football at the age of 34. And that is the latest there. There's another player whose retirement I saw recently. When his name comes to mind, I'll bring that up again. Business Finder: MPs cast vital vote today on critical revenue bills needed to facilitate IMF board approval. That is in the Business Finder newspaper. Review cocoa price in Cocoa Board tells the EU. And EcoBank named Ghana's best trade finance provider. Pictured there, Dansaki, MD of EcoBank. But let's get to that story on page 2. Find out what the dynamics are in Parliament. So Parliament is expected to vote today on the Income Tax Amendment Bill, Excise Duty and Excise Tax Stamp Amendment Bills, as well as the Growth and Sustainability Levy Bill. These three we spoke to you about at the start of the show and which we're going to be talking about. But the passage will facilitate IMF Executive Board approval, and the approval of these outstanding revenue mobilization bills will or is set to facilitate the approval of the $3 billion International Monetary Fund Program staff level agreement by the Executive Board of the IMF. The passage as well of all the outstanding revenue bills which are necessary for effective budget implementation, as well as boosting efforts at increasing tax to GDP from less than 13% to the sub-Saharan average of 18%. There are other dynamics to take stock of. For example, the finance minister has hinted that the Growth and Sustainability Levy is a temporal measure expected to apply from 2023 to 2025 to help correct the imbalances being experienced. I would say that, well, these statements have been made. I would only inquire into what has happened with similar policies or levies or taxes in the past. For example, the COVID-19 levy. Why do I still get charged when I go, whether to an eatery or to make certain purchases? Why do we still have the COVID-19 levy? It's being charged every time you make certain purchases. The COVID-19 levy hits you. So if the finance minister tells us it's a temporary measure expected to apply from 2023 to 2025, I can only look at the precedents and wonder whether the administration would stick to its word. Again, just as we heard from the NUC's president recently, Mr. Labi, Dennis Labi, I want to maybe use this opportunity to push it to the finance minister. The GET Fund, like we're being told, in fact, this year we're raking so much more, over 4 billion if memory serves, but the number or the percentage going to the GET Fund, so ordinary Ghanaians. And that's why when we make purchases, it is deducted. So it will go to the GET Fund so students can get what they need to study. We keep decreasing the numbers. I think The last time he came on the show, he mentioned it was 39% or 36%, all the way from about 66%. So what exactly is happening? Mr. Finance Minister, we have to look at that, especially as your administration appears to be targeting education as one of the highlights of this tenure. The new crusading guide now, and there is Support Ghana Rice Project. CEO of AAC tells Ghanaians, Unite for Development, Musuko Manche, charges traditional leaders. And Jama North NPP delegates support Enoch Nyako. There's also Alan flexes muscles, prints albums for 200,000 NPP delegates. And there's Ghana's leadership in rule of law commendable. UK Deputy Prime Minister tells Ghana's AG, Attorney General. Well, that's how we're going to wrap the news review this morning. Of course, as we get ready for sports, we can only wish the very best to the Black Stars as they lock horns with the Palancas Negras of Angola, hoping that we'll be able to beat them so we can go 3 points clear. But the news review always brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, and they still are offering you free prostate screening. Let me just pause here. You do know that African men of our race, are more susceptible, as science has shown, to prostate issues. So this is one opportunity you don't want to miss. You want to take advantage of this. And the interesting bit on the back of the non-exercise, sedentary lives, pressure, the kinds of food we eat, nowadays, a lot more men in their 30s, and this is also scientific. I've spoken to one of these people before, and he said he gave random testing, and so many 30-plus-year-olds had issues with their prostate. So guess what? Take full advantage of this opportunity and get in touch with Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They are offering free prostate screening, free female fertility screening as well. Where can you locate them? Accra, Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Kronum Abwehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. Takrade Anaji Estate, Tema Community 22. Techiman Hanswa and Esiama Enzema. You can also reach them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. As we draw the curtains on the news review, I'd like to say a big thank you to Charles Appiah, Executive Secretary of the Ashanti Business Owners Association. Unfortunately, he couldn't join us for the length and breadth of the conversation, but we're grateful for the time he shared with us. On that note, let's serve you sports up next on the AM show. Do stay.